This is your morning Buzzcast for Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Abe Madkour. We'll start with baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are up 2-0 in their divisional series against the Chicago Cubs. We've said for some time on the Buzzcast, keep your eye on how far this team, the Brewers, advance. Remember, this comes as the delta and gap in payroll and the haves and the have-nots in Major League Baseball continues to grow. So this team, under the ownership of Mark Attanasio, has proved to be an anomaly. They have won 3 consecutive NL Central titles, 4 of the last 5. They've reached the postseason in 7 of the last 8 years. And this week's SBJ cover story looks at how they are doing it. They are playing in the country's 39th largest media market. They rank 23rd in payroll in 2025, yet they managed to finish the regular season with the best record in baseball. And it's the first time the Brewers have done that since 1982 when they did reach the World Series. One thing about Attanasio's leadership, they have been consistent in trying to compete, and they have been successful. And they're a very galvanizing brand and force in that part of the country, especially in Wisconsin. In his 2 decades as the Brewers owner, he has shown a keen awareness of where his team fits in baseball's ecosystem, but also how the Brewers fit in Milwaukee. And so read Mike Mazzio's cover story on the Brewers and its leadership. It's certainly worth your time. Let's move on. The NHL drops the puck Wednesday, and some surprising big changes at the Carolina Hurricanes and the leadership under owner Tom Dundon, as Hurricanes president Doug Warf resigned just days before the team begins its season on Thursday. Now, it wasn't immediately clear if he is leaving for another opportunity elsewhere, but he has a long background with the organization. He worked for the Hurricanes for 17 years in sales and marketing, then returned as president in 2024. He is well regarded. He's well liked within that organization. And the reason that his departure is noteworthy is obviously first, the timing just before the start of the season. And also, there is major projects and developments around the Lenovo Center. And Doug Warf was leading much of the development of a sports and entertainment district that's expected to really transform Raleigh. So the team said his departure will not impact the timeline for these projects, and they are expected to start construction in the coming months. Now, Doug Warf was also a public face for Tom Dundon's efforts to bring a baseball team to Raleigh, so certainly a void at the top of the Hurricanes organization with him departing just days before the start of the season and no word on the search process. Again, Tom Dundon, as we know, building a pretty impressive sports portfolio, now looking for a new leader of the Hurricanes. Let's talk about facilities because you see more and more teams diversifying their product mix around their mixed-use development. And one of the biggest trends we have seen is building small, intimate amphitheaters near a sports venue. It provides a ton of inventory for concerts, for shows, and other acts. And these venues are a magnet to bring more and more consumers down to your development. So we have seen these venues in Boston, outside Fenway Park, in Milwaukee, outside Fiserv Forum. AEG built one in Nashville, and it was announced on Monday that Tepper Sports and Entertainment plans to build an indoor music and event center adjacent to Bank of America Stadium. This comes as Bank of America Stadium is undergoing a major renovation over the next few years, and so now they obviously feel it's the time to add a new venue. It'll be about 4,500 seats, and it's just another offering they believe will draw people, and it will be versatile. So this venue can be used for pregame hospitality. It can be used for corporate and private events, Of course, it will be used for concerts, theater, and other acts. Now, Tepper Sports expects to host up to 100 events in the building per year. That's heavy inventory. And construction is expected to begin in 27. The venue is expected to open in 2030. It will be entirely funded by Tepper Sports, and it continues a trend we're seeing in the sports and venue space. I was at a dinner last night. So much of the conversation focused on where does the WNBA go from here. The general sentiment around the table was that relationships are so fractured right now. And yes, relationships can heal, and things always get tense. But you have to admit, these are challenging times for the league. Now, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said she and Union Executive Director Terry Jackson did hold negotiations over the past week about a new collective bargaining agreement with more scheduled, but don't be surprised if they extend the October 31st deadline for these CBA talks. Engelbert has said the league wants to significantly increase players' salary and benefits while also supporting the long-term growth and viability of the WNBA. That translation to me is, yes, we will pay more, but we're losing a lot of money. We need to be mindful of expenses, and we need to make sure we have an economic model that can be viable going forward. But the bottom line is there obviously needs to be a level set on trust. They have to repair the obvious lack of trust between the two sides. And it should be noted, in these negotiations, there are so many people involved. Sometimes commissioners are not even in these collective bargaining agreement meetings. It's more for lawyers to work on the key points of the deal. And then at times, the leaders on both sides come in at the end. And perhaps that's how these negotiations will continue to unfold. But again, this October 31st deadline coming soon, likely to be extended. Let's move on. I took in a couple of college football games over the weekend, and so much of the conversations that I had was about revenue. And we have noted how much pressure schools are under to find new ways to raise revenue after the House settlement. And we have said everything is on the table. Here's some examples. Ohio State, they are offering stadium tours for more than $40. Bloomberg also noted that they are doing a golf partnership that will allow fans to tee off from the upper deck of the stadium. So again, using your venue to drive revenue. There's been more and more talk about concerts on campus, and there is a push for more alcohol sales on campus at venues. The University of Nebraska started selling alcohol this year. They expect to bring in as much as $5 million this year. That includes sponsorship signage, branding, and sales. That is real revenue. Also, keep your eye on Texas Tech chair Cody Campbell. So who is Cody Campbell? Well, he's a former athlete. He played offensive lineman for Texas Tech and the Colts, and he has been out front touting a plan to save college sports largely around generating more media revenue. But the way he is doing it, very controversial, and has not endeared himself to the leaders of college sports. In his effort, he has been pretty blatant in calling out conference commissioners. And in his most recent posting on social media, he said, quote, "To conference commissioners, it's all about money and control. Their greed is bankrupting all but the biggest sports, and women's sports and Olympic programs everywhere are paying the price," end quote. Pretty strong words, I would say very strong words, and that has really angered many in the collegiate landscape. And last weekend, college football's national partners, media partners, did not air Cody Campbell's ad, so again, he posted it strictly on social. So my bottom line, watch Cody Campbell's efforts and the response from college leaders. And we'll end with a quick hitter. Expect to see more of Wayne Gretzky on TV as he has agreed to a multi-year deal with TNT Sports to continue for its NHL coverage in the United States. You know, Gretzky's not in studio for every broadcast, but he's around their big events, Stanley Cup Final, Winter Classic. He always adds some gravitas whenever he's on the set. Wayne Gretzky extending with TNT. So my takeaways from today's Buzzcast. First, the Brewers' run in the postseason will be a critical story and theme in next year's CBA negotiations as this smaller market, lower payroll team continues to defy the odds. Number two, more and more sports organizations are building intimate music venues as a way to bring more events and more consumers to their mixed-use developments anchored by sports facilities. Number three, watch Texas Tech's Cody Campbell, who has been outspoken but upset college commissioners and others in his efforts to reform college sports. And my last takeaway, the issue of trust between the WNBA leadership and players continues to be the main focus in CBA negotiations, and an extension of the October 31st CBA deadline is quite likely. And so that is your morning Buzzcast for Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Abe Madkour. Thanks for listening. Stay healthy. Be good to each other. I'll speak to you tomorrow.